thank you, Marcus and Cheryl, for being here. I appreciate you guys. So, what is the most important thing that you do for self-care for you? I want to know. I'm Ellie, and I help people take charge of their wellness so that they can move better with less pain, and they can have joy and freedom of movement in their lives every day. And we're going to today just talk about self-care. So, what is self-care? What does that even mean? Self-care is intentional activity or practices that we do to promote our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. We haven't always done self-care in our lives. When we're infants, we're not really doing self-care, although crying might be considered self-care because it's demanding attention, right? And it's getting their needs met, right? But as we get older, we start to recognize that it's up to us to take charge and to do some things to help us feel better and to move better. And so what are some ways? Well, actually, let me go here first. Self-care is going to be different. It's going to be different for every single person. What self-care that's important to you is going to be different to you than it is for somebody else. It might look the same. It might look like you're having your fingernails done and getting a manicure, and that might look the same from one person sitting in a chair next to another person sitting in the chair. But the reason behind that self-care may be different. My daughter loves to do her nails. She's really intent on doing her nails, but it's not so much self-care physically of her nails that's important to her. It's the mental health and well-being that's important to her. She has able to be creative. She's able to focus on something that she loves, and she's made connections with other people all around the world who are following a particular YouTuber that she likes. So self-care comes in all different kinds of packages. So another thing about self-care, so I'll tell you a story. When I was in my early 20s, way long ago, I walked every day. I walked to work and back. It was at least a 40-minute walk, and I walked fast and purposeful, and I did that every single day. But I didn't do it for my physical well-being. That wasn't even in my mindset. I didn't even think like, oh, I need to walk for exercise. That wasn't even the reason I did that. The reason I did that self-care or that walking every single day was so that I didn't have to wait for a bus. I didn't have to wait for a subway. I didn't have to crowd onto the subway and find a seat. I didn't like all that stuff. It wasn't good for my mental well-being and emotional well-being, so I walked instead. But because I walked so much, I wasn't taking particular care of another part of my well-being, my physical well-being, and I walked until my shoes were shot. They were broken down, and I kept using those shoes, and eventually my feet broke down. And no lie, I was walking like this. I could hardly walk. I had to take the bus. I had to take the subway, and I had to up my game. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, whether you can up your or upgrade your self-care so that you can get better. Let me take a look and see who else is here and what's going on. You should do things, Marcus. How do you start? We're going to get to that. So anyway, so first let me talk about why self-care is important. And again, thinking about me and my story and my needs for self-care, when I've had really bad pain issues, which I've had, when I've had, I guess that's mainly the biggest thing for me was pain. Pain kept me from moving. It kept me from feeling happy. I was discouraged. I got depressed. And I had no tolerance for people, and especially those little kids of mine. And I wasn't always the very nicest person. So I think when we take good care of ourselves and we feel better in our bodies, that we are kinder and more compassionate. And I think that if everybody had a self-care practice of their own, the world would be a kinder, better place. So that's sort of my goal. I feel better now than I did in my earlier years because I focus on it. I focus it. It's important. It's priority, and it should be priority for you too, because you can't, I had brain fog. I couldn't think. I couldn't, it affects everything in your life when you're not caring for yourself. And you can't really, honestly, do the best job of caring for your loved ones if you're not in the best place you can be for you. So it's really important, and I'm not talking about taking 2 hours a day for self-care, and that's a whole nother topic again. I'm talking 5 minutes, 15 minutes, pausing between activities that you're doing. Take a pause. Just breathe. That's self-care. Set your boundaries. That's self-care. So self-care comes in, let me check and see how people, has anybody written? Yeah, actually, Marcus, you're right. Our bodies, when there's pain in our bodies, it's oftentimes because we're not moving enough. But our impulse is to tighten up, close down, curl up. That's our instinct as a protective maneuver. Because if you had a threat coming at you, you're protective. You would protect yourself by tightening and closing up. And so our brains kind of get confused. They might think that that pain is a threat and you should tighten up. But actually, that makes it worse. Tightening up makes pain worse. Being inactive makes pain worse. If you're sitting, for instance, on sitting all day long, that will increase your pain more likely than decreasing it. So if you have pain, it's a matter of moving. But you don't want to move so much and go right into a really intense workout or something if you have pain, because you might not be ready for that. So I just recently did a squatting challenge to do squats, right? And I couldn't do a squat all the way down to the floor. And so, but the first step of doing that was hip mobility. So the very first step was lying down on your back and getting better mobility in your hip, even before you try doing a squat. And you know what? It really worked. So we're going to talk about that, taking those small steps. And up your self-care. So Cheryl, I know that you do a lot of self-care. What's the most important thing to you? Can you identify the most important? All right, so now I'm going to go into how do you do it. All right, so this is for you, Marcus, right now. How do you upgrade? How do you start doing better self-care? So the first thing you have to do is identify what needs change. You might say everything, right? And I want it now. Change everything and I want it to change right now. It's not so easy like that. So you're going to take one thing, and it can be, so the three areas: physical, mental, and emotional. Which one is the one that's speaking to you saying, this needs a change? Pick that one. Identify one piece among that. So if it is physical, so for instance, physical self-care is about breathing better, getting enough oxygen in your brain and in all your tissues. It's about moving your body so that the fluids can move in your body. And the fluids in our body, they actually lost my train of thought there. The fluids in our body remove cellular metabolic waste products. And if that fluids aren't moving, you get a clogged filtration system. So movement is really important. It doesn't have to be intense. It can just be moving a little bit. It could just be like allowing your arm, if your shoulders are tight, allowing your arms to swing back and forth. And reaching up, but it doesn't have to be like the biggest reach of all. It's just getting your body to move a little bit. Your physical change that you need or that you identify might be about sleep, because how can you move more throughout your day if you're not sleeping, if you're not getting enough energy because you haven't slept well? So if that's the thing that needs to change, focus on that. Don't try to do all of it all at once. It's too much. But if you pick away at the little things, you can even write yourself a little chart, right? And you say, okay, physical, I want this, 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 and this. But what's the one thing that you can do today? The one change that you can make today. So first you identify what that is, whether it's physical, emotional, mental health and self-care. Learn something new every day. Read a book. There's all kinds of being creative. Start a new hobby, even if it's just 10 minutes a day. Start something new. Get your brain to activate and be a part of your life. So pick one out of those things, because what's going to happen is the one you pick is going to slide into the other areas. So if you pick sleep, for instance, that's going to help you physically, but it's also going to help you mentally, and it's also going to help you emotionally. So all of those things will connect. So pick one. Then the next thing is you're going to take the steps to make that change. So if, for instance, it's your nutrition, you want to change your nutrition. You want to get better nutrition. And you know what? Adding things is better than subtracting things. So rather than saying, I'm going to stop doing sugar, I'm going to stop doing this, and I'm stop doing, don't do that. Add the good things in. Say, pick 5 vegetables. I want to add 5 servings of vegetables to my daily diet. Go out, buy those 5 vegetables or more, and just start incorporating that into your diet. If so that would be a way to make a change in your nutrition for your self-care of your physical body. And it also will help your mental and your emotional as well. So one is to identify what is the thing going to be. 2 is, you can even write these down, what are the steps you're going to take. Even just take one step. Go to the store, buy those vegetables. Then the 3rd step is you're going to commit. You're going to say, I am doing this. Boom. I'm going to do 1 squat every day. I'm going to do 5 vegetables every day. I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to read a book once a month. I'm going to set a boundary. You know, setting boundaries is a huge self-care thing. There are so many self-care things, so I will get to those as I go along on my journey here in YouTube land. But just pick something and do it and commit to it. Commit to it for 1 day, or commit to it for 3 days, or maybe you would commit to it to 10 days or 30 days, kind of like doing live every day for 30 days. You're going to commit to it. Get an accountability partner. Ask somebody to help you. Tell somebody you're going to do this and make this change. And that will help you to actually do it. But do what's reasonable and that you're able to do. Because if you pick something really big and then you're not able to do it, then you've got like success and I'm not blah, 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 right? So always make sure that the things are reasonable that you are making a change about. All right, so Cheryl, you get movement every day. That's fantastic, and I knew that about you. Physical for you, Marcus. So sleep didn't work out so good. Maybe you should focus on movement for now. I kind of want to challenge you to look at that sleep issue again. Because I think sometimes we give up on something when it's not easy, right? And the sleep issue, you may have just chosen the wrong first step. You might need, so here, there was a time where I was trying to make a change in my morning routine. But to make a change in my morning routine, I actually had to make the change in my evening routine. Does that make sense? Because if I wanted to feel energized enough to do something different in the morning than what I was doing, which was lying on the couch, I needed to sleep better. To sleep better meant I needed to change so backtrack. I needed to change my evening routine. And so maybe you do something where you do a breathing practice for 10 minutes before you go to bed. Maybe picking an exact time that you're going to go to bed every night would be your thing that you thought would be the best thing to do, but maybe that's not the best thing for you. That might be somebody else's best thing to do. So you really have to, and this is the taking charge part, you have to go in here, right in yourself, and think, what's important to me? How important is it? What are the consequences if I don't do it? If you don't get sleep, right? And then what's reasonable? What can you do? Can you just increase your sleep by a half hour? Can you, so there are little things that you can do. And so I will go back to movement though, because you mentioned moving more. If you move more, you'll sleep better. So I don't know your exact issue with the sleep. We can talk later if you'd like. But moving more and moving better in your body is going to help you have a better sleep. So I know you walk, that's great, but you can also do some getting on the floor and doing some mindful, small movements in your whole body that will help with the sleep stuff, perhaps. So do what's reasonable, do what makes sense to you, and don't back down from a challenge. Baby steps. Yes, Cheryl. Yes, Marcus. And yeah, so you know what? The sleep psychologist had good tips. You started doing it and then you stopped doing it. So if you think about why you stopped, what was the obstacle? And you could try it again. You have the tools now. And maybe figure out a way around whatever the obstacle was. It's all connected, you're right. It is all connected. So I want to reiterate how important it is to take charge of your wellness. And that's through self-care. No one else, hear me, no one else is going to take care of you the way you can take care of you. No one else knows what's going on in there. Doctors they're great. They have a lot of insights. They have a lot of knowledge, but they don't know your inner wise one. There's an inner wise one that knows exactly what you need. And making sure that you listen to that inner wise one. Because once you start listening, the messages will be a little bit louder. I'll leave you with that. And I thank you so much for being here. It was great to have you here. And if you're interested in more information and ideas and thoughts about self-care, subscribe to my channel, ring the little bell for notifications. I will be back on Tuesday next week at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And remember, it's your body. It's your wellness. Take charge. Bye.